fear. If it's not a good fit for you, you have to move on. My one game-changing idea was I deserve more. And if I deserve more, people deserve more. That is really what I built the company on. The worst thing in my life happened to me. What was left to fear? Nothing.
Today's guest is a powerhouse of purpose and resilience. JenniferJohnson, also known as JJ, founder and CEO of PVI, a thriving biotech services firm built on one radical idea, that people come first. Who would have thought it? But her game-changing moment didn't start in the boardroom. There were a few other things that happened in her life. I'll let her explain. JJ, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Jess.
So it's called Game Changers. It's the one big thing. What is your one game-changing idea?
It came out of a longer story, but my one game-changing idea was I deserve more. And if I deserve more, people deserve more. And that is really what I built the company on.
Tell me about human-centered leadership.
I think that can really go two ways, right? I have my internal team, the team I have to take care of, because that's the team that's going to deliver on the work ultimately. But I have my external team. The external team are the clients who really come to us, trust us with the work that they have to do. And for them, a lot of them, it's really important work. For instance, clients that we have that are in rare disease and bringing drugs to market that are the only drug for a patient and a particularly ultra rare disease, that actually getting to market is a really important thing for people. So we impact that at the end of the day.
You had this idea, it should be people first. Where did that idea come from? What led up to it?
I think really it was born of my experience in working for another agency and running that agency for the last 10 years prior to starting PVI. And my experience was unfortunate because it came out of a really tragic incident in my life, which was the loss of my son. And, you know, how that arc of what happened during that time was something I said, we could never do again. And the statement I left there with was really, I deserve more. So if I deserve more, people deserve more. And that next 2 years after that happened was all about trying to figure out how do I extricate myself from this business while taking care of my clients and taking care of the team members who had worked for me, some of whom 15, 16 years, some of whom were single mothers. I didn't feel I had the luxury of just walking away from the business. It was a good year and a half before I could move on from that business and find a way to step out really on my own.
Now, usually in business, the CEO wants everybody to come in early and stay late, and I don't want to hear about work-life balance. And you went through a whole thing and said, this needs to be rethought for everybody. How does that actually work in business?
In practice, that is a secret sauce of how you set up a team in order to be able to have redundancies so team members can support each other when they have to go out. We recently had a team member on our team who had a death in the family who will be out on Thursday. We have client meetings. The business doesn't stop. The secondary and tertiary people on those teams will take care of that. It's really about the caring piece, though, I think. It's knowing enough to have the conversation. This is not a place where I was natural as a leader. I was heads down, delivering massive amounts of work, flying 300,000 miles a year around the world, delivering on client projects. It was an absolute relentless pace. And you can keep that for a certain amount of time. You have to have team members who are bought into that with you. And I think I'm taking a softer approach in my sort of later years in my career. And certainly it is a spoken value, that caring piece in our organization. And it is different than I have done in the years from now. And if there's any indication that me showing a vulnerable side versus just JJ, the powerhouse that the clients are used to, that everybody trusts, that calls them up as their thought partner, that becomes the CEO whisperer for small and medium-sized biotech, right? Like the JJ powerhouse that everybody shows up. What I'm finding is if they know me as a person, they actually respect me even more because they know, and apologies for being emotional, Yesterday was Mother's Day. So they know what I've been through and they know how I stand up having come out of that.
You're forcing yourself to share some of your personal story and what happened with your son so other families will hopefully learn from it or hopefully not have to go with it. And of course, it makes complete sense. I'm a parent. I just hearing your story.
Yes.
What can you share of that story for our audience that they can learn from?
My son, unfortunately, found his way into addiction after I think what was a propensity for really a crushing anxiety disorder that he was trying to medicate. And during the years that I was nursing my mother through a cancer journey, he was left to his own devices in a lot of ways. I was running the business and my mother's care at a Columbia Presbyterian in New York City from 2010 until 2012 when she passed. So there was a hiccup there in mothering. So that's what happened. We worked really, really hard to fix things, right? We did all of the normal courses, rehab, trying counseling, trying antidepressant medication. It was a sort of a holistic fight to try to get this kid out of the path that he was on.
He didn't make it. And you just said that you just had Mother's Day. It got you to rethink
Yeah.
everything in your life, including business. I can only imagine as a parent how it felt, and it scares me even to think about it. But how did you then even take one step to the side and say, oh, I need to just rethink everything?
I mean, think about how you operate when something like that happens. So the worst thing in my life happened to me. What was left to fear? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There was nothing left to fear. So all of the things that I had going on in my mind about, oh, I couldn't do this, or I maybe if I don't have that, or I don't know this, it didn't matter anymore. It was about finding a way back for me emotionally, physically, health wise, getting through the grief. And there was no way I was going to do that in the organization that I was currently in. There was no space to breathe there, and there was no support for the process. So all I can say is I knew I had to get out. I had to find another path. And at that point in my mind, it was crazy. You think about starting a business, right? Of course, there are risks. There are things you should be afraid of. But my operating model became no fear.
And now, if somebody in your organization, you went and started a whole new company during this COVID time period, which just makes it more complicated, I think, dealing with all the personal stuff. So if you have somebody in your company now who says, I'm going through something, whether it's a parent who's sick, and we're in that generation where we have aging parents, we have kids we're trying to take care of and run businesses, or if it's something they're going through, how do they open that dialogue?
It is really important to address people as the whole people. And in our business, we lean to people who are more experienced, 20, 25 years in the business. So they're dealing with all of those things like aging parents, right? And that's just part of the calculus. But there is also the piece that says, through all of that, I was able to persevere. I was able to stand up and perform in large part because you have to compartmentalize to survive, right? So I could only let those things of the grief in small
Yeah.
pieces as I could handle them. And the actual piece of performing was really a survival mechanism. I have an example. A gal who works for me, her father had a brain bleed this past week. You got to go take care of that. You've got to focus on that. Her response to me was, if this is okay, I'm going to take on this as the piece of work because she was accountable. She has the passion for her work. She knows how important she is to the team, but she was able to make the choice. Did she and how she needed to show up for her father and how she needed to show up for the company and her teammates who rely on her.
Even just knowing that the company says, I get what you're going through, maybe releases a lot of steam and the person can see through the fog.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, you have to hire the right people, right? And they have to be accountable for themselves. They have to be independently productive. I'm not hiring people who need to be micromanaged and have a babysitter on board. These are people who are like big thinkers, innovative drivers, people who are like creatively looking at problems that our customers are having and our clients need to solve in order to move the business forward. That takes a different level of person who's sitting in the seat next to me and with me and for our company.
We've all heard about the Steve Jobs method of leading a company, and people say, that's the real leader, but he yelled and screamed at people or made them stay all night. And there are lots of other leaders who do that. this is the opposite of that. And does it work?
Yes, I am totally on the other side. I classically give people long rope and runway in order for them to self-correct in things that they're doing. I try to subtly, coach and drive. I set very high expectations. I would say I'm a pace setter leader where I am very clear of what a good client deliverable looks like. I'm very clear of how we have to show up in every engagement. I'm very clear on what that end product should look like. And even if it's a project where we're in the gray area, where we're building strategy from the ground up, or we're solving a new problem that we haven't done as an agency, we don't have a template approach. We have a very customized approach for every single client and every piece of work that we do. I think by setting those expectations and being very clear on those things, people have to find their way to deliver on that, really. And it's a challenge and it's fun. We actually have fun while we're doing it.
For people who don't work for a company where this is the culture, what can people do to put themselves first, to be human-centered first?
Yeah, that's really about the values. Look inside yourself and figure out what drives you. It's funny because one of the models that we employ, and this is a little bit about how I look at external talent and people who are coming in to be contributors to our business, because if you can imagine a small company, right? I've got a team that's full-time staff, but we fit for purpose model with our clients, and we have to flex to bring in like subject matter expertise for a 3-month or 6 month or a 9 month run. That's a very challenging model to manage and lead because you're constantly having people coming in and out of the business and you're trying to deliver on a feeling for how people feel when they work with PVI. So that's actually a magical secret sauce kind of a thing. And we're actually formalizing that as our consultant pool has grown. So that's been a big piece of how we're able to leverage in the business to get bigger more quickly to handle our business. So from a people perspective, really, it's about finding your own internal drivers, and then that will help guide you to where you need to look from a company perspective. Because some people really thrive in a gritty, dirty, fast moving, fast paced. Other people need very staid, very clear rules, lots of
Yeah.
stuff around it. So if that's the kind of person you are, go find that kind of company. You are a driver, you are a creator, you're an innovator. That's the kind of people who are coming into PVI.
And I guess you have to figure out what type of person somebody is, if they are the right fit. And I know as you're talking, I'm thinking about some of my own experiences. I know when after college and started out, there was a vibe of, actually, I had a leader say this, hey, there are 1,000 other people who are lining up for your job. If you don't like something, then go get another job. I was like, yikes. But many years later, when I got married, when I had kids, I said, you know what? I think I am going to get another job. So it was two sides of that same coin, of first being like, yikes, wow, that's a little rough that you say that, but maybe we should sometimes get another job.
That's exactly right. There's plenty of things to do out there. If it's not a good fit for you, you have to move on. I can't tell you how many people that we come across in our work, clients who are struggling with those very same things. And one of the things we're really leaning into as an organization is women leaders in biotech, and how do we as a company, PVI, step in to offer. We're doing a lot of coaching when we're actually doing project work, because those people are people in roles who are looking to advance and go to the next level. We have so many insights from all the years in this business that we've been in, and from seeing across a landscape of clients, from tiny, small, emerging biotech, 7, 10 people in-house trying to get funded, to the biggest top 10 pharma where we've worked successfully globally across the planet. It's really a lens that allows us to speak from a great sense of knowledge, to share insights with people who've been in that exact same place, who are trying to get to another place in terms of growing their career. So that's a thing where we look to sponsor sort of conferences. We're going to be there in front of those people and give them a space to have some networking and some mentoring.
Definitely different and needed. And before we go, let people know what PVI is and who you serve.
Yes. So Project Velocity, we're a boutique consulting firm, right? So we compete against all the big boys in pharma and biotech, often called biopharma. And we are a project-based agency. So if you can imagine, in just 3 short years, we have just such tremendous breadth and volume. We have completed over 130 projects in just 3 years. This is unheard of in this space. So we come in really at the pivot points for organizations. So for instance, a new asset gets bought in, a company gets bought, there's a merger, there's a change in leadership, there is a dip in performance in the market, and they need to unwind and figure out what's happening. There's a new indication that comes in for a drug product. So those pivot points is where we can really come in and add acceleration to how they're showing up in the market.
But JJ, with all that stuff happening at once, there's an acceleration. There's no time for people to be people and have and deal with a personal life, let alone have a personal life, right?
It is a high intensity environment, no doubt. But you know what? People are really, really happy about that culture piece and what we're building here. And I will tell you, one of the things I'm most proud of is that in our first Great Place to Work survey and certification process, we had 100% of our team members who believe that PVI is a great place to work. I was so incredibly proud of that piece as a leader. That to me spoke volumes. And the fact that we have consultants coming back over and over again for project work that help us extend our team. The fact that we've kept a stable team for over 3 years now. It's a testament to that we have something actually different going on here.
Human-centered leadership and putting yourself first. Do you have any last advice for people on how they can do this in their own life?
Look, it's one step at a time. Take that first step.